Hi guys, and welcome back to Switch Up. Some of you have asked for this video, so well, here it is. Obviously we can't cover every game that's on the summer sale, but these are some of the absolute best choices that you can make, as well as a couple of stinkers that you should avoid at all costs. Thanks so much for the support as we approach 40,000 subs. Let's get into the video. If you check the description down below, you'll also see a handy link so that you can set yourself up with an eShop from another region. The first game on the list is Assassin's Creed 3, which also comes with the Liberation HD remake, and I recently reviewed this. I enjoyed the game immensely, and although there were a few jittery moments in the port, Liberation looks so good on the Switch and is running really well, and while Assassin's Creed 3 isn't running quite as well, it's still very good, and having it on a handheld is hopefully a precursor to Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. At this price, I would say for fans of the series, especially those who haven't played the game before, it's worth playing. It has many of the familiar aspects you'd be used to with an Assassin's Creed game, as well as some of the additions that they then built upon for Assassin's Creed 4, like the ship building, but here you have your own ship to sail to different ports. I enjoyed this game a lot, although the main protagonist, Connor, isn't quite the same charmer that Ezio Auditore was. Still, for this price, worth picking up. The first game to potentially avoid is one called Time Carnage, which Glenn reviewed about half a year ago now. The real issue with this wasn't the fact that it wasn't the most advanced and that the stages were a little limited, it was that the controls were just so strange. I seem to recall that he had to use them back to front, so it was something like you aimed with the left one and then you could use the right Joy-Con to shoot. It just was back to front, and he didn't enjoy that at all. Now, whether they've patched that or not would make a big difference to if you should pick this up, but if they haven't, then I think we'd both recommend that you avoid this game. The next game that you might want to pick up, well, look, you should pick it up. It's called The Messenger, and it's currently 33% off at around about £12. Now, this surprised everyone, as it started out as quite a straightforward game, and then halfway through opened up massively, and really the whole gameplay changes. They've just released a huge expansion pack for this as well, so it really is an excellent time to pick this game up. If you don't already know, it's a side-scrolling action game inspired by classic Ninja Gaiden with a really unique 8-bit to 16-bit shifting mechanic. Playing as the messenger, you'll gain new abilities such as gliding through the air or climbing walls, and while it all feels familiar, they did a great job of making the entire experience very fresh for a modern audience. It's won countless awards since its release, and if you like the look of this one, I'd strongly recommend picking it up right now in the sale. This next title is most definitely an avoid. Buyers beware, you are in for a scare if you go for the Goosebumps game. Now, Glenn reviewed this, and while it's not terrible, I think the general experience he had was quite lackluster. With such a potentially ripe intellectual property, they just didn't do enough to make this stand out from the plethora of disappointing adventure titles. It carries a lot of the R.L. Stine monsters and creations, it just lacks any of the creativity that went into that series. Next up, a most definite buy is the recently released Castlevania Collection. Without trying to bore you, this has Castlevania, Castlevania 2 and 3, Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania The Adventure, has Belmont's Revenge, Bloodlines, Kid Dracula, and the history of Castlevania, Book of the Crescent Moon. That, for about 11 quid, you'd be absolutely mad not to. It's a real piece of history, this one, and comes with an ebook that outlines many of the details that went into creating this series. It was released as part of the Konami 50th anniversary celebration. I never really got to experience these as a child, so it's lovely getting to play them on possibly my favourite console of all time. It's also a good time to purchase if you are a fan and haven't done so, because they have actually added in the Japanese versions. It's the same for the Contra games that were released as well. The next must-have game in the sale is Dragon's Dogma, which is 20% off, and to be fair, it was quite reasonably priced before. This game is absolutely vast. If you're a fan of open-world RPGs, then this might be the one for you. The thing about it is that the combat is so much more refined than almost any other game I've ever played in this genre. You can grab and mount large creatures, riding them essentially, and stabbing them in the head. Very, very good game indeed, this one. Check out our review that's on the channel. I think it might well persuade you to make the purchase. One of the most interesting mechanics is that you can create a pawn, P-A-W-N, and they follow you around in the game, but you can also then allow them to go online to be used by other players, and if they do so, they return to you with new items. It's just a really nice little bit of online play, if you will, and adds another element to a game that's already absolutely great. The next games that I suggest you think about picking up really depend on if you've played them before, and that's the Capcom games. Now, Capcom seem to be doing some strange things when it comes to their pricing. So when they released Resident Evil 4 and a couple of other Resident Evil, like Resident Evil 0, onto the Switch at about £30 each, there was just no way I was going to look twice at them. For me, it was a bit unreasonable, to be honest. At 34% off, I think these are a much more appealing option. I would say if you haven't played Resident Evil 4, then I strongly suggest picking it up. The Switch port is good, although it's a disappointment they didn't include the motion controls from the Wii version, which in my opinion is the definitive version. But yeah, this price is now a lot more reasonable. Let me know if you're going to be picking these ones up.
What are we gonna do, Leon?
Your next absolutely essential pickup has got to be Hellblade, hasn't it? Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. We didn't think it was going to arrive on the Switch, and then it just popped up out of nowhere. An absolutely incredible port. Yes, they do some trickery with the visuals, but do we really care? It's completely seamless and it looks amazing on the Switch. This is the emotional story of someone suffering with some severe mental health issues, and it's told brilliantly. It has a binaural soundtrack, and if you listen to this with headphones, the voices sound like they're coming from all directions. It's a brilliant representation of those struggling with these conditions, and the game itself is a very interesting take on an action adventure. I enjoyed this a lot, and at £17.49, around about 30% off, I'd say this is a definite pickup.
Gods will be dead, and the warriors of Valhalla, and people everywhere.
Ragnarok, for it is nigh.
Which takes me on to the final game that I'd suggest you avoid, and it's a title called Suicide Guy. While I kind of like the concept of using many different game worlds to create little puzzles, if you will, the whole concept and execution was poor. Don't be fooled by the average looking visuals. The game is well below average, and I didn't enjoy it at all. I would say give this one a wide berth. Which brings me on to the last game that I would recommend you go out right now and pick up, and it is Steamworld Dig. This is currently £2.69. You can't even get a kebab for that. My goodness. It describes itself as an action-adventure platform game, and the Swedish developers are lovely guys. We met some of them down at EGX in London. It has an almost emergent gameplay, and as you explore and mine resources below the town of Tumbleton, you really will grow attached to your little robot. Well worth this at 70% off.
The caves. The gold. The danger. The upgrades.
So that's it for this list. We don't want to give you too many choices because, well, let's be honest, there are hundreds of good games in that sale. Let us know down below though if there are ones in particular that you'd like to shout out for other people to see. And as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!
The showdown.